The Galactic Council had finally said yes to humanity after 3 long years of waiting. Humans had shown they could build good technology, talk peacefully with others, and control their violent nature. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the big observation deck of Orbital Station Harmony. He watched the first group of human visitors arrive from Earth. The station would be a safe place where humans and aliens could meet and learn about each other. The Council had been careful about letting humans join the bigger galactic family. They worried about human strength and their wild behavior. But they agreed to try this program. One of the arriving ships was called Transport Vessel Meridian. It carried many different types of humans who would represent Earth. The list included scientists, artists, people who handle peace talks, and something that surprised Jake a bit. 5 families with children. The Council wanted to see how human children grew up. They were curious about how such a dangerous species raised their young ones. The Vrelian ambassador stood next to Jake. His name was Chkar. He looked like a giant praying mantis with many eyes. He watched every movement carefully. "Your young ones," Chkar said through his translation device. "They are kept in strong containers during the trip, yes? For safety reasons?" Jake looked confused. "No, Ambassador. They just sit in the passenger area with their parents. Why would we need containers?" Chkar's long, thin parts on his head moved in a worried way. "But human children have full hunting abilities from birth, correct? On my world, our young stay in special pods until they learn proper control." Before Jake could answer, a young girl ran across the docking bay. She could not have been more than 7 years old. She had bright red hair and 2 ponytails and wore a backpack almost as big as she was. Her name tag said Katie Sullivan. "Daddy, look!" Katie shouted. She pointed at Chkar with pure joy. "Is that a real alien? He looks like the praying mantis we learned about in school." The Vrelian ambassador stepped back fast. Sharp points came out of his body for protection. 3 security robots turned on right away. They flew between him and the child. The girl stopped, confused by all the sudden activity. Katie's father, Lieutenant Peter Sullivan, ran over and picked up his daughter. "I am so sorry, Ambassador. She is just excited." "Katie, remember what we talked about? We need to be calm and nice with our new friends, but I am being nice," Katie said loudly. "I just wanted to say hi." Jake watched as the Vrelian's computer chip struggled to understand what was happening. The ambassador was a famous military officer who had lived through 3 planet wars. But he looked truly scared of a 7-year-old girl being happy. "Commander Morrison," Chkar said slowly. His voice shook a little. "That young one ran at me very fast, showed teeth, and made loud sounds. This is not attack behavior?" "No, sir," Jake replied. He tried not to smile. "That is just excitement." She smiled at you. "It is a friendly thing for humans." Over the next few hours, similar things happened all over the station. 10-year-old Marcus Chen did a flip in the zero-gravity play area. This made a Pluthari delegate panic and call for emergency help. 8-year-old Sophie Bennett asked the Croxian trade minister if she could touch his crystal shell. He ran away to his room, and young Billy Patterson, who was 6 years old, made alarms go off all over the station. He climbed into an air pipe during a game of hide-and-seek. By the end of the first day, the alien delegates had made 17 formal complaints. 3 of them asked to leave the station. An emergency council meeting was called. In the main conference room, Jake found himself trying to defend humans. To a room full of nervous alien officials, "You must understand our worry," said Ambassador Zixoth of the Aquarian Collective. Her voice came through water in her suit. "In my species, young ones are completely helpless for the first 8 years of life. They cannot even leave the water pools. Yet human children show strength, speed, and willpower that is better than many adult warriors among our people." The young one, called Marcus, added a Grell representative. His 3 eyes blinked one at a time. He moved his body in ways that show complete control and muscle power. "Our soldiers trained for years to do such things." Jake took a deep breath. With respect, council members, human children are just curious and full of energy. They are not dangerous. They are learning about the world through play. "Play?" Chkar said with surprise. "I watched young Katie Sullivan do what you call play with 2 other children. They were acting out fight scenes with teamwork and attack patterns. One of them used a ball as a weapon by throwing it very hard. That is called dodgeball," Jake said quietly. "It is just a game." The room became silent. The aliens looked at each other through their different ways of communicating without words. Finally, the Croxian minister spoke. His crystal body made musical sounds. Commander Morrison, the Galactic Council moves to lock all human children in supervised safe areas until we can better understand the risk they create. Starting now, Jake felt his stomach drop. The cultural exchange was falling apart before it even started. All because the galaxy's other species could not understand that human children were just being kids. The next morning brought more problems. Jake received reports of 3 more incidents. Katie Sullivan had tried to pet a Yithian delegate service animal. The creature was considered sacred in their culture. Billy Patterson somehow got into the engineering bay and started asking questions about the station's power systems. The chief engineer, a cautious being from the Zephon system, nearly had a breakdown. And Sophie Bennett organized a game of tag that resulted in 2 minor collisions and 1 broken alien artifact. The artifact belonged to the Plutheri delegation. It was a crystal meditation sphere worth more than a small spaceship. Sophie had not meant to break it. She simply did not know that Plutheri crystals could not handle the vibrations from running children. Lieutenant Sullivan found Jake in his office that afternoon. The man looked tired and frustrated. "Sir, the families are getting angry. My daughter cried herself to sleep last night. She thinks she did something terrible. The other parents are talking about requesting transfer back to Earth." Jake rubbed his face with both hands. "I know, Pete, but I do not know how to make the council understand. To them, our kids look like small soldiers who have not learned discipline yet. That is crazy. They are children. Yes, they are active and curious, but that is normal for human development. We evolved on a tough planet. Our kids need to be tough too. Try explaining evolution to species that spent millions of years in safe environments," Jake said. He pulled up reports on his screen. The Vrelians stay in protective shells until adulthood. The Aquarians never leave their water worlds until they are fully grown. The Grell young do not even have physical bodies for their first decade. They exist as pure thought patterns in group minds. Peter sat down heavily. "So what do we do?" "I wish I knew. The council meeting is in 2 hours. They are going to vote on whether to send all human families back to Earth. If that happens, it will set back human integration by years, maybe decades." The 2 men sat in silence for a moment. Then Jake's communication device beeped. It was Dr. Lisa Campbell, the station's chief scientist and xenobiologist. "Commander, I need to see you right away. I think I have an idea." Jake and Peter hurried to the science lab. Lisa was there with her daughter Emma, who was 11 years old. Emma was smart and usually calm. She reminded Jake of her mother in many ways. "Lisa, what is your idea?" Jake asked. "I want to give a presentation to the council, a real scientific one with data and facts. I can show them human child development charts, injury statistics, behavioral studies, everything that proves our kids are not dangerous." Jake wanted to hope, but he had tried similar things already. The council is not interested in data right now. They are scared. Fear does not listen to logic. "Then maybe they need to hear from a child directly," Emma said. She stepped forward. "Let me talk to them, Commander. Let me explain what it is like being a human kid. Maybe if they hear it from someone my age, they will understand better." Peter looked uncomfortable. "Emma, these are powerful aliens from across the galaxy. They might not listen to a child." "Exactly," Emma replied. "They will not listen because they think children cannot be trusted to speak for themselves. But that is part of the problem, is it not? They think we are either helpless babies or dangerous animals. Nobody sees us as people who can think and talk and explain things." Lisa put her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "She has a point, Commander. The council keeps talking about human children like they are objects to be studied or threats to be contained. Nobody has actually asked the kids how they feel or what they think." Jake looked at Emma for a long moment. The girl met his eyes without fear. She stood straight and confident but not cocky, just a kid who knew her own mind. "All right," Jake finally said. "I will ask the council if they will hear from Emma, but I cannot promise they will agree." "They will agree," Emma said simply. "They are scientists and leaders. They want to understand. Right now they are making decisions based on fear and assumptions. I can give them real information from a real human child. That has to be worth something." 2 hours later, Jake stood before the Galactic Council with Emma Campbell beside him. The chamber was huge and filled with beings from 24 different worlds. Some breathed air like humans. Others lived in special suits filled with water or gas. A few existed as energy patterns contained in floating crystals. Ambassador Chkar looked down at Emma from his high seat. Commander Morrison, you bring a juvenile to a council session? This is most irregular. Ambassador, you said you wanted to understand human children better. Here's your chance. Emma Campbell has volunteered to answer your questions and help explain human development from her own perspective. The Plutheri delegate's suit bubbled with agitation. The child is 11 years old. How can she possibly provide meaningful insight? Emma spoke up before Jake could answer. Because I am 11 years old, sir. I can tell you what it is actually like to be a human kid. All your reports and studies are about us, but nobody asked us. A ripple of surprise went through the chamber. Several delegates leaned forward with interest. The Croxian minister made a chiming sound. Very well. Young Emma Campbell, tell us, why do human juveniles behave in ways that seem aggressive or dangerous to us? Emma thought for a moment before answering. I do not think we behave dangerously. We just behave normally for humans. When Katie ran up to Ambassador Chkar yesterday, she was excited. Excited is different from aggressive. She wanted to see something new and cool. That is what kids do. But the rapid movement, the loud vocalization, the display of teeth, Chkar said, these are threat behaviors among many species. Among humans, they are friendship behaviors, Emma replied. We smile to show we are happy and safe. We talk loudly when we are excited. We move fast because we have energy and want to explore. If Katie was being aggressive, you would know it. She would not be smiling. Her voice would be different. Her whole body would look different. Can you explain these differences? Asked the Yithian elder, the oldest member of the council. Sure. When humans are angry or want to fight, we usually make ourselves look bigger. We might cross our arms or make fists. Our faces get tight and our voices get lower and harder. Katie did none of those things. She was bouncing and smiling and her voice was high and happy. That is the opposite of aggression for humans. Ambassador Zixoth spoke through her water-filled helmet. But human children possess physical capabilities that exceed many adult forms in other species. How do your parents control such power in beings with undeveloped judgment? They teach us, Emma said simply. From when we are very young, our parents teach us right from wrong. They teach us to be careful with our strength. They teach us when it is okay to run and shout and when we need to be quiet and calm. We make mistakes sometimes because we are still learning. But we are learning. What happens when you make mistakes? The Grell representative asked with genuine curiosity. We get in trouble, Emma said with a small smile. Our parents might give us a timeout or take away privileges. They explain what we did wrong and why it matters. Then we try to do better next time. That is how humans learn. We do not just know things automatically. We have to practice and sometimes fail before we get it right. The Croxian minister chimed thoughtfully. On our world, young ones emerge from growth chambers with full knowledge implanted directly into their crystal matrices. The concept of learning through failure is foreign to us. That sounds nice, Emma said, but I think maybe you missed something important. When I fail at something and then figure out how to do it right, I feel proud. I feel like I accomplished something real. If everything was just given to me, I do not think I would appreciate it as much. Jake watched the council members react to Emma's words. They were listening. Really listening. Not with fear or suspicion, but with genuine interest. The Yithian elder spoke again. Child, what do you think about the containment order? How does it make you feel? Emma's expression became sad. It makes me feel like a monster. Like there is something wrong with me just for being who I am. Katie cried last night because she thought she hurt Ambassador Chikar's feelings. Billy will not leave his room because he thinks everyone is scared of him. We came here so excited to meet aliens and learn about the galaxy. Now we feel like prisoners. You are not prisoners, Chikar said quickly. We simply wish to ensure safety. Whose safety? Emma asked. The question was not rude, just honest. We have not hurt anyone. We have not damaged anything on purpose. The only thing we did was act like normal human children. If that makes you feel unsafe, maybe the problem is not with us. Maybe the problem is that you do not understand us yet. The chamber fell silent. Jake felt his heart racing. Emma had just challenged the entire Galactic Council, but she did it with such simple logic that nobody could argue. Finally, Ambassador Chkar spoke. You are wise beyond your years, young Emma. Perhaps that is another thing we misunderstand about humans. We assume juveniles meant lack of intelligence or reason, but you think and speak with clarity. How is this possible at your age? All kids can think clearly, Emma replied. We might not know as much as adults because we have not lived as long, but we can still think about what we do know. We can ask questions and figure things out. Human parents talk to their kids like we are people, not like we are pets or machines. They explain things to us. They listen when we talk. That helps us learn to think for ourselves. This is very different from our ways, the Pluthari delegate said. His tone was less hostile now, more curious. We do not communicate with our young until they reach cognitive maturity. Before that, they simply follow programmed instincts. That would be lonely. Emma said softly. Human kids need to talk and be heard. We need to ask our million questions even when they are annoying. We need adults to take us seriously. That is how we become good adults ourselves one day. The Yithian elder made a sound that Jake's translator rendered as thoughtful humming. Commander Morrison, I believe this child has taught us more in 10 minutes than all your reports and presentations could have. She has shown us that human juveniles are not incomplete humans waiting to be finished. They are complete beings at their current stage of development. Exactly, Emma said, smiling at the elder. We are not broken adults. We are kids. That is its own thing. Ambassador Zixoth's suit glowed with what Jake had learned meant she was thinking hard. If we lifted the containment order, what would you and the other human children do? We would explore the station safely, Emma answered. We would ask questions and learn about all the different species here. We would play games and make friends. We would show you that human kids are not scary. We are just different from what you are used to. And if accidents happen? The Croxian minister asked. If something breaks or someone gets frightened? Then we say sorry and try to fix it, Emma replied. That is what you do when you make mistakes. You apologize and learn from it. We are not going to be perfect. Nobody is perfect, not even adults. But we will try our best. Chkar stood up from his seat. It was a gesture of respect that Jake had rarely seen him make. Young Emma Campbell, you have given me much to think about. I propose that we take a recess to discuss what we have heard here today. When we reconvene, we will vote on the containment order. The council members agreed and began filing out of the chamber. As they left, several of them looked back at Emma with expressions that were no longer fearful. Some seemed curious. Others looked impressed. The Yithian elder even gave Emma a small bow before departing. When the chamber was empty except for Jake, Emma and Lisa, who had been waiting outside, the doctor rushed in and hugged her daughter. Emma, that was incredible. You spoke to them like equals. They are equals, Emma said. They are just from different places. Once they understood that we are not trying to hurt anyone, they started listening. Jake knelt down to Emma's level. You did something very brave today. You stood in front of the most powerful beings in the galaxy and spoke your truth. I am proud of you. Thanks, Commander. Do you think they will vote to let us out? I honestly do not know. But you gave them a lot to think about. That is more than anyone else has managed to do. The recess lasted 2 hours. Jake spent the time pacing in his office while Lisa and Emma went to the recreation room where the other families were waiting. The news of Emma's speech had already spread. The other children wanted to hear every detail. Finally, Jake's communicator beeped. Commander Morrison, please return to the council chamber. We are ready to vote. Jake hurried back with Emma. This time Lisa came too, along with Peter Sullivan and the other parents. They all wanted to hear the decision. The council chamber felt different now. The tension was still there, but it was mixed with something else. Hope, maybe. Or at least openness to change. Ambassador Chkar stood at his position. We have deliberated on the matter of human juveniles and the containment order. I will not pretend this was an easy discussion. Our species have very different approaches to child rearing. What seems natural to you seems dangerous to us. What seems protective to us seems cruel to you. He paused, looking directly at Emma. But young Emma made a point that we cannot ignore. We have been making decisions about human children without actually understanding them. We treated them as problems to be solved rather than individuals to be known. That was wrong of us. Jake held his BR. 3 days after the council lifted the containment order, Orbital Station Harmony began to look like a very different place. Human children moved freely through the corridors now, though their parents kept a closer eye on them than usual. Everyone wanted to make sure this new freedom worked out well. Katie Sullivan had become something of a station celebrity. The 7-year-old seemed to have no fear of aliens at all. She greeted everyone she met with the same bright enthusiasm, whether they had 2 legs, 6 legs, or no legs at all. On this particular morning, Katie was in the main dining area with her father. She was eating breakfast and watching a group of young Grell across the room. The Grell young ones were not really children in the human sense. They were more like floating balls of light with basic awareness, but they were still learning about the world, so Katie thought of them as kids like her. "Dad, can I go say hi to them?" Katie asked, pointing at the Grell. Peter Sullivan looked at the Grell adults nearby. One of them noticed his glance and nodded slightly. "Okay, but remember to be gentle and calm. They might be sensitive to loud noises." Katie walked over slowly, keeping her voice soft. "Hi, I am Katie. What are your names?" The Grell younglings bobbed up and down, their lights pulsing. One of the adult Grell spoke through a translation device. They do not have individual names yet. In our culture, young ones share a group identity until they develop full consciousness. "They are curious about you, small human. Can they play?" Katie asked. "Play is not a concept we understand. Our young ones learn through direct knowledge transfer." Katie thought about this. "That sounds boring. Want me to teach them a game?" The Grell adult seemed uncertain but interested. "What sort of game?" "Follow the leader, it is easy. I do something and they copy me. Like this." Katie raised her right hand above her head. The Grell younglings watched but did not move. "They do not have hands," the adult pointed out. "Oh, right." Katie giggled. "Okay, how about this?" She spun in a slow circle. This time, the younglings responded. Their floating forms rotated in place, mimicking her movement. Their lights pulsed brighter with what might have been excitement. "Interesting," the Grell adult said. "They are engaging in imitation behavior. This is unusual for them." Katie spent the next 20 minutes teaching the Grell younglings various simple movements. By the end, a small crowd had gathered to watch. Several alien species found the sight both strange and charming. Across the station in the recreation area, Marcus Chen was having his own cross-species moment. The 10-year-old had brought his skateboard from Earth. He was showing some Aquarian youth how it worked. The Aquarians existed in special suits filled with water. They had never seen anything like a skateboard before. They found the whole concept bizarre and fascinating. "You stand on a platform with wheels and use momentum to move?" one of the Aquarians asked. "This seems inefficient and dangerous." "It is not about being efficient," Marcus explained. He demonstrated a simple trick, rolling forward and then kicking the board up into his hands. "It is about having fun and challenging yourself." "Fun," the Aquarian repeated. "This is the second time today a human juvenile has mentioned this concept. Can you define it more precisely?" Marcus sat down on his board thinking. "Fun is when you do something that makes you happy, not because you have to or because it is useful, just because you enjoy it. Like, skateboarding does not help me get anywhere faster than walking, but it feels cool and makes me smile, so I do it." "Your species engages in activities purely for emotional satisfaction?" another Aquarian asked. "Even when they serve no practical purpose?" "Yeah, all the time. Do not your people do stuff just for fun?" The Aquarians looked at each other through their water-filled helmets. "Our young ones spend their development period in learning pools. They absorb knowledge and skills. When they emerge as adults, they are fully prepared for their life roles. There is no time for activities without purpose." Marcus frowned. "That sounds sad. You never play? Never just do silly things to make each other laugh?" "Laugh?" one of the younger Aquarians asked. "I do not understand this word." "It is what you do when something is funny or makes you happy. Like this." Marcus made a silly face and laughed at himself. The sound was pure joy. The Aquarians watched silently for a moment. Then slowly one of them made a gurgling sound through their suit speaker. It was awkward and uncertain, but it might have been their attempt at laughter. "That was weird," the young Aquarian said, "but also it felt pleasant. Can you teach us more about this laughing?" Marcus grinned. "Sure, but first you have to see something really funny. Watch this." He set up his skateboard and attempted a complex trick he had been practicing. He almost landed it, but at the last second he lost his balance and tumbled onto the soft floor padding. He was not hurt, just surprised. Instead of being upset, Marcus laughed at himself. "See? Even failing can be funny if you do not take it too seriously." To his surprise, several of the Aquarians made that gurgling sound again. They were laughing at him, but in a friendly way. Marcus had just taught aliens how to find humor in mistakes. Meanwhile, in the station's garden area, Sophie Bennett was having a very different kind of interaction. The 8-year-old loved plants and had been excited to see the hydroponics bay, where the station grew food. Ambassador Chkar had promised to give the human children a tour, and today he was keeping that promise. Sophie, Emma, and Billy Patterson, followed the tall Vrelian through rows of growing plants from dozens of different worlds. This section contains vegetation from my home world, Chikar explained, gesturing at some purple and green plants with thick leaves. We use them for both nutrition and medicine. Sophie leaned in close to examine the plants, being careful not to touch them. They are beautiful. How long do they take to grow? Approximately 40 of your days from seed to harvest. Why do you ask? I was thinking, Sophie said slowly. Maybe we could start a project. Human kids and alien kids working together to grow a garden. We could each pick plants from our home worlds and take care of them together. It would be something we do as a team. Chikar's antennae moved in a way that Emma had learned meant he was interested. A combined garden representing multiple worlds. That is an excellent idea. But would human children have the patience for such a project? Plants require consistent care over long periods. We can be patient, Sophie insisted. My mom has a garden at home. I help her with it all the time. You have to water plants every day and pull weeds and watch for bugs. It teaches responsibility. And it is boring, Billy added honestly. The 6-year-old was examining a blue flowering plant with great interest. But boring is okay sometimes. My dad says doing boring stuff teaches you to stick with things even when they are not exciting. Chikar looked at Billy with what might have been respect. Your father is wise. Many young beings across all species struggle with activities that do not provide immediate stimulation. So can we do the garden project? Sophie asked hopefully. I will propose it to the council, Chikar promised. I think it is exactly the sort of cooperative activity we should encourage. Emma had been quiet during most of the tour, taking everything in. Now she spoke up. Ambassador, can I ask you something personal? Of course, young Emma. When you first met Katie, you seemed really scared, but now you are giving us tours and talking about projects. What changed? Chikar was silent for a moment, his mandibles clicking softly. You changed, Emma, or rather, you changed my understanding. When I first encountered human children, I saw only potential danger, beings with strength and speed and unpredictability. It frightened me because it was so different from what I knew. He gestured at the 3 children with one long forearm, but then I observed you more carefully. I saw Katie's joy was genuine, not aggressive. I saw Marcus sharing his activities with others, not competing or dominating. I saw Sophie caring for living things with gentleness. And I saw you, Emma, speaking truth with courage but also with respect. I realized I had been wrong. Human children are not dangerous. They are simply fully alive in ways that my people stopped being long ago. What do you mean? Billy asked. My people value order and control above all else. We spend our youth in chrysalis, emerging only when we are ready to fit perfectly into society. We never experience the messy, chaotic, wonderful process of growing up that you humans go through. I think perhaps we lose something important in our caution. Emma smiled. You could learn it again. It is never too late to play and explore. Even adults can do that. Perhaps, Chikar said thoughtfully. Perhaps that is another lesson humans can teach us. The tour continued for another hour. By the end, several other alien parents and their young ones had joined them. Word had spread that something interesting was happening in the garden area, and curiosity drew them in. A Pluthari mother floated nearby in her environmental suit, watching her gaseous child interact with Billy. The two were comparing favorite colors, a concept that the Pluthari found new and intriguing. Your child has patience, the Pluthari mother said to Peter Sullivan, who had come to pick up Billy. Mine struggles to focus on any one topic. But your Billy listens and asks questions. How did you teach him this? Peter looked surprised by the question. I guess we just talked to him a lot. From when he was really little, 2 weeks had passed since the containment order ended. The cultural exchange program had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as a simple sharing of space had become genuine friendship and learning between species. Lisa Campbell stood in a classroom she had set up for her new teaching program. Around her sat 20 adult aliens from 8 different species. They had come to learn about human child development and parenting methods. The key principle, Lisa explained, pointing to images on the screen behind her, is that human children learn by doing. They need to touch things, try things, even break things sometimes. That is how their brains develop. A Yethian in the front row raised a delicate limb. But Dr. Campbell, is this not dangerous? What if they touch something harmful? That is where parents come in. We teach them what is safe and what is not. We supervise when they are young. As they get older and show good judgment, we give them more freedom. It is a gradual process. This seems inefficient, a Grell observer noted. Why not simply install the knowledge directly? We have the technology. Because learning is about more than just knowing facts, Lisa replied. When a child learns through experience, they develop problem-solving skills, creativity, and confidence. Those things cannot just be programmed in. They have to grow naturally. A Croxian minister who had been quietly listening spoke up. I have observed the human juvenile Sophie Bennett in the garden project. She made an error in her calculations for water distribution. The plants in Section 7 received too much water and began to suffer. I expected her to become distressed or to abandon the project. What did she do instead? Lisa asked, smiling because she already knew the answer. She researched the problem, consulted with the station botanist, adjusted her approach, and saved the plants. Then she documented what went wrong so others could learn from her mistake. This behavior impressed me greatly. That is exactly what I mean, Lisa said. Sophie learned more from that mistake than she would have from 100 perfect waterings, and now she is better prepared for future challenges. The class continued for another hour, with aliens asking questions and sharing observations about the human children they had been interacting with. By the end, Lisa felt genuinely hopeful that they were building real understanding. Meanwhile, in another part of the station, something unexpected was developing. Zirkech, Ambassador Chkar's son, had been on the station for a week now. The young Vrelian warrior had become fascinated with human children, especially Emma Campbell. Today, Emma had agreed to teach Zirkech and several other young aliens about something humans called sports. They met in the low-gravity rec area where Marcus had set up several different activity stations. Okay, everyone, Emma announced to the gathered group. Today we are going to learn about teamwork through games. Sports are not just about winning. They are about working together and supporting each other. The group included Zirkech, 3 Aquarian youth, 2 young Plethari, and a Grell youngster who had developed enough independent consciousness to participate. It was the most diverse group Emma had ever worked with. First game is relay races, Marcus explained. He had become Emma's assistant for this lesson. You split into 2 teams. Each person runs to that marker and back, then tags the next person. First team to finish wins, but we do not all run, one of the Aquarians pointed out. My people float. The Plethari phases through solid matter. How can we compete fairly? That is the cool part, Emma said. You cannot compete fairly. That is why you have to work as a team. Each person does their part using their own abilities. The Aquarians might be slower but steadier. The Plethari can take shortcuts. Zirkech is probably fastest in straight lines but might have trouble turning quickly. You figure out how to use everyone's strengths. They divided into teams and began. At first, chaos ruled. The Aquarians bumped into others. The Plethari accidentally phased through the markers instead of around them. Zirkech ran so fast he overshot the turning point and had to backtrack. But after a few practice rounds, something clicked. The teams started communicating. They developed strategies. The Aquarians went first to set a steady pace. The Plethari took the tricky middle section. Zirkech and the other faster beings anchored the final legs. By the 10th race, both teams were working like well-oiled machines. And more importantly, everyone was having fun. I understand now, Zirkech said during a break, his translator making his clicking voice sound breathless with excitement. This is not about individual excellence. It is about collective success. On Vrelia, we train alone. We compete to prove individual worth. But this is different. This is better. Welcome to being part of a team, Emma said, offering him water. It is one of the best parts of being human. Can I ask you something personal? Zirkech said. Sure. The incident in the research lab, when you crawled through that dangerous passage to save your mother and the guards. Were you not terrified? Emma was quiet for a moment, remembering. Yeah, I was scared. Really scared. But my mom needed help. Those guards needed help. Being scared did not change that. But you are a child. By Vrelian standards, you should not even be out of chrysalis yet. How did you have the courage? My parents raised me to believe I could do hard things, Emma said simply. They never treated me like I was fragile or helpless. They taught me skills and trusted me to use good judgment. So when the moment came, I knew I could handle it, or at least I knew I had to try. Zirkech stood very still, processing this. I have trained for combat since emerging from chrysalis. I have studied tactics and weapons and strategy. But I am not certain I would have had your courage in that situation. That troubles me. Why? Emma asked. Because you are younger than me, smaller than me, with less training than me. Yet you demonstrated superior warrior qualities. It challenges everything I believed about strength and capability. Emma smiled. Maybe you are thinking about it wrong. It was not warrior qualities. It was just caring about people and doing what needed to be done. Anyone can have that no matter what species they are or how old they are. Perhaps you are right, Zerkich said thoughtfully. Perhaps humans understand something about courage that we Vrelians have forgotten in our focus on martial perfection. The rest of the sports lesson went well. By the end, even the most physically awkward participants were enjoying themselves. The Grell youngster, who had never moved their floating form so much in their short existence, declared it the best day ever. As the group dispersed, Emma noticed Ambassador Chikar watching from the observation area. He gestured for her to come up. "You're having a positive influence on my son," Chikar said when Emma reached him. "He speaks of little else but the lessons you teach. He says you are making him think about what it means to be truly strong." "He is pretty cool," Emma replied. "For a giant bug alien warrior guy, I mean. No offense." "None taken," Chikar said, his mandibles clicking in what Emma had learned was amusement. "Tell me, Emma Campbell, do you realize what you have accomplished here? We played some games? No. You bridged species barriers that have existed for thousands of years. The beings you taught today come from cultures that barely interact with each other. They have different biologies, different values, different ways of thinking, yet you brought them together and made them function as teams. That is remarkable." Emma shrugged, a bit embarrassed by the praise. "I just treated them like kids. Because that is what they are, sort of. Young ones who want to have fun and make friends. That part is the same across all species, I think." "I am beginning to believe you are correct," Chikar said. "The Council has noticed these developments. There is talk of expanding the cultural exchange program to other stations. Some members want to invite human families throughout the galaxy. That would be amazing," Emma said excitedly. Then she paused. "But also kind of scary. Not all kids are like me and my friends. Some kids are mean or make bad choices. What if we send the wrong ones and they mess everything up?" "That is a very mature concern," Chikar observed. "But Emma, we have learned something important from watching human children. You are not perfect. You make mistakes and sometimes cause problems. But you also apologize, learn, and grow. That process of imperfection leading to growth, that is valuable. We would rather see that than beings who never make mistakes because they never take risks. So mistakes are okay as long as you learn from them?" "Exactly. That is perhaps the most important lesson humans have taught us." Later that evening, Jake Morrison called a meeting of all the human parents on the station. They gathered in a conference room wondering what announcement he had to make. "I just got word from Earth Coalition Command," Jake began. "They are thrilled with how things are going here. So thrilled that they want to expand the program. They are asking for volunteers among you to potentially transfer to other stations across the galaxy." The parents looked at each other with mixed expressions of excitement and uncertainty. "What about our kids?" Peter Sullivan asked. "Would they be safe on other stations?" That is what the Council wants to discuss," Jake replied. "They recognize that human children need certain freedoms to thrive. Any station that accepts human families would need to adapt their policies and attitudes. It would be a big change for them." "It is a big change for us too," said one of the other parents. "Taking our kids light years, F." The family meeting happened the next morning in the main recreation room. All the human families gathered together, kids and parents sitting in a large circle. Commander Morrison stood at the front with Ambassador Chikar beside him. "Thank you all for coming," Jake began. "As your parents probably told you, we have an opportunity. The Galactic Council is impressed with how things have gone here. They want to invite more human families to other stations across the galaxy." Katie Sullivan raised her hand immediately. "Would we all go together or split up?" "Good question," Jake replied. "Right now the Council is talking about 3 other stations. Different families would go to different places. You would be pioneers, showing other aliens what human families are like." "So we would not all be together anymore?" Billy Patterson asked quietly. The 6-year-old looked worried. His mother put her arm around him. "That is something we need to think about carefully, honey. Moving far away from friends is hard. But we could still video call, right?" Marcus Chen asked. "Like we do with family on Earth?" "Yes," Jake confirmed. Communication across the galaxy takes a bit of time because of the distances, but you could definitely keep in touch. Sophie Bennett spoke up. Which stations are we talking about? Are they safe for humans? Ambassador Chikar answered this one. All 3 stations have been selected because they can support human biology. You would be able to breathe the air and eat the food with some adjustments. The species living there are also ones we believe will be open to learning, based on how things have progressed here. But you cannot promise we would be safe, Emma said. It was not a question, just a statement of fact. No, Chikar admitted. I cannot promise that. There will be aliens who are frightened or confused by you. There may be accidents or misunderstandings. What I can promise is that the Council will do everything possible to support you and your families. You would not be alone. The room fell quiet as everyone processed this information. Then Katie stood up, her red pigtails bouncing. I want to go, she announced. It was really scary at first when we came here and everyone was afraid of us. But now we have friends. Ambassador Chikar is our friend. Zerkich is our friend. All the young aliens we play with are our friends. If we can make friends here, we can make friends anywhere. Katie, sweetheart, this is a big decision, Peter Sullivan said gently. We need to think about it carefully. I know, Daddy, but I have been thinking about it. We came to space to do something important. To show aliens that humans are good. If we go back to Earth now, we only showed the aliens here. But if we go to other stations, we can show way more aliens. That is important work. Marcus raised his hand next. I want to go too. This has been the coolest experience of my life. Yeah, it was tough sometimes. But I learned so much. And I taught aliens how to skateboard. How many kids get to say that? Sophie nodded in agreement. Plus, the garden project is going so well. We could start gardens on other stations too. Imagine gardens all across the galaxy with plants from every world all growing together. That would be beautiful. Billy looked uncertain. He was the youngest of the group and the most cautious. What if the aliens on the other stations are meaner than the ones here? What if they do not like us no matter what we do? Emma knelt down beside Billy. That is a real possibility. Some people, human or alien, just do not want to change their minds. But Billy, remember when you were hiding in the air duct and everyone was so worried? You came out and apologized and explained you were just playing a game. Most of the aliens understood once you explained. People usually come around if you give them a chance. But what if they do not? Billy insisted. Then we tried our best, Emma said simply. And that is all anyone can do. The adults in the room exchanged glances. Their children were being remarkably mature about this decision. More mature than some of the parents felt. One of the other mothers spoke up. Commander Morrison, what happens if we say no? If we decide this is too much and we want to go home? Then you go home with honor, Jake replied firmly. Nobody will think less of you. What you have done here already is incredible. You do not owe the galaxy anything more. But the galaxy needs us, Katie said stubbornly. Not just us specifically, but humans. Aliens need to know about us. Really know us. Not just read reports or watch videos, but meet us and talk to us and play with us. That is how you make real peace between people. Through friendship, Chikar's antennae trembled with emotion. From the mouth of a 7-year-old human comes wisdom that should guide the entire Galactic Council. Katie Sullivan, you understand something that many leaders miss. Peace is not just the absence of war. It is the presence of genuine connection. I learned that from my dad, Katie said proudly. He says the best way to stop fighting is to make friends. Peter Sullivan looked like he might cry. Baby girl, you are making this very hard for Daddy to be cautious and protective. You can be protective and brave at the same time, Katie replied. You taught me that too. Jake let the families talk among themselves for a while. Parents hugged their kids and spoke in quiet voices about fears and hopes. Some families seemed ready to volunteer immediately. Others needed more time to think. After 30 minutes, Jake called for attention again. Here is what we are going to do. You have 1 week to decide. Talk to your kids. Talk to each other. Visit the stations virtually if you want to see what they are like. At the end of the week, we will meet again and those who want to volunteer can sign up. No pressure. No judgment. This is your choice as families. What about you, Commander? Marcus asked. Are you going to one of the new stations? Jake smiled. I am staying here. Someone needs to run this station and continue the programs we have started, but I will visit the other stations regularly to check on everyone. And I will do the same, Chikar added. As Council Ambassador to Human Integration, It is my duty to ensure your success and safety." The meeting ended with families drifting off in different directions. Some went to the virtual reality room to explore the other stations. Others went back to their quarters to discuss privately. The kids mostly went to the rec area to play, needing to burn off the nervous energy that came with big decisions. Emma found herself sitting alone in the garden area later that afternoon. She was watering the plants in the section she maintained, thinking about everything that had been said. Zergich found her there. The young Vrelian warrior settled his large frame carefully next to the plant beds, trying not to crush anything. "You are contemplating the decision," he observed. "How did you know?" Emma asked. "You have a particular expression when you are thinking deeply. I have learned to recognize it." Emma smiled at that. "Yeah, I am thinking. It is a big choice. Part of me wants to go because it sounds like an amazing adventure, but part of me is scared. What if I am not as brave as everyone thinks I am?" "Emma Campbell, you are one of the bravest beings I have ever met. And I have met warriors who have fought in actual battles. But that is the thing," Emma said quietly. "Everyone keeps calling me brave because of what happened in the research lab. But I did not feel brave. I felt terrified. What if next time I freeze? What if I let everyone down?" Zerkich was quiet for a moment, then spoke with unusual gentleness. "On Vrelia, we have a saying. The warrior who knows fear and acts anyway is stronger than the warrior who knows no fear at all. Fear tells us we are facing something real and difficult. Acting despite that fear is the truest form of courage." "Did you ever feel scared?" Emma asked. "Often. My first live combat drill, I was so frightened I could barely hold my weapon. I thought I would disgrace my family. But my training instructor told me something I have never forgotten. He said that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important than your fear." Emma thought about that. "So when I went into that crawl space, I was not being brave because I was not afraid. I was being brave because I was afraid, but my mom's safety mattered more." "Exactly. And Emma, if you decide not to go to another station, that does not make you less brave. Sometimes courage means knowing your limits. There is no shame in saying something is too much. But what about all those aliens on other stations who are scared of humans? They need someone to show them we are not monsters." "They do," Zerkich agreed. "But that someone does not have to be you. You have already done more than anyone could have asked. If another family goes instead, they will succeed because of the path you have helped create." Emma looked at the Vrelian warrior who had become her friend. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from a very smart 11-year-old human," Zerkich replied, his translator giving his clicking voice a warm tone. "She taught me that wisdom comes in all ages and all forms." They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, watching the plants grow under the artificial sunlight. Finally, Emma spoke again. "I think I want to go, not because I have to or because everyone expects me to, but because I want to meet more aliens and make more friends. I want to see other parts of the galaxy. And yeah, I want to help humans and aliens understand each other better, but mostly I just think it would be really cool." "Those are good reasons," Zerkich said. "The best reasons are the ones that come from your heart, not from duty or expectation." "What about you?" Emma asked. "Will you stay here?" 6 months passed since the families left Orbital Station Harmony. Emma Campbell stood on the observation deck of Frontier Station Apex, looking out at a view that still took her breath away. The station orbited near a nebula that painted the space around them in colors she had no names for. Beyond the nebula lay unexplored regions where no human had ever been. Her mother joined her at the window. "Still not tired of that view?" "Never," Emma replied. "It is different every day. Yesterday the nebula was more purple. Today it is more blue. That is because of the stellar winds," Lisa explained. "The gases shift and flow. It is like watching a painting that constantly creates itself." Life on Frontier Station Apex had been challenging, but rewarding. The station housed exploration teams from 7 different species. Most of them were scientists and scouts, people who chose to work at the edge of the unknown. They were more open-minded than the average galactic citizen, but they still had reservations about humans. Those reservations had faded quickly once they met Emma and the other human children who had come to various stations. Reports flowed between the integration stations, sharing successes and strategies. What worked in one place often worked in others. Emma had made friends with a Yithian explorer named Shalti, who was only slightly older than her in relative development. Together, they had started a club for young beings on the station. They called it the Junior Explorers. The club met twice a week to learn about different aspects of space exploration, from navigation to xenobiology to ship mechanics. Today was a special day, though. Commander Morrison was visiting from Orbital Station Harmony, bringing news from the other families and updates from the Galactic Council. Emma rushed to the docking bay when his ship arrived.
Katie Sullivan was with him along with her father.
They were making a tour of the integration stations to see how everyone was doing. "Emma," Katie shouted the moment she saw her friend. The two girls hugged while the adults smiled at their reunion. "I missed you so much," Emma said. "How is the Yithian station?" "Amazing. The Yithians are so cool. They live for thousands of years and remember everything. They have been teaching me their meditation techniques. Want to know something funny? They think 7-year-old humans are the perfect age for learning meditation because we still have natural wonder but are starting to develop focus. That is awesome. How are Marcus and Sophie?" "Marcus is doing great at the industrial station. He started a sports league there with like 6 different species. They had to invent new games because everyone has different body types. Sophie's agricultural station is growing food that combines techniques from 4 different worlds. She is basically a genius farmer now." Peter Sullivan shook hands with Lisa. "Dr. Campbell, your daughter continues to impress everyone she meets. The council has been getting reports from Frontier Station Apex about her Junior Explorers program. They want to implement similar programs on other stations. She gets that from her father," Lisa said proudly. "He was always good at bringing people together." Jake Morrison looked around the station with approval. "This place suits you, Emma. Very frontier, very exploratory. How have things been going?" "Really good," Emma replied. "The first few weeks were rough. Some of the alien crews were worried that human kids would be too reckless for a frontier station. Space exploration is dangerous and they thought we would take stupid risks." "What changed their minds?" Jake asked. "Actually showing them how humans think about risk. We do not take stupid risks, we take calculated risks. There is a difference. I proved it during an emergency drill last month." "Tell me about that," Jake said with interest. Emma led them through the station as she explained. The drill simulated a hull breach in Section 7. Standard procedure is to evacuate that section and seal it off. But the drill included a complication. 3 crew members were supposedly trapped in the section with failing communication systems. "That does sound complicated," Katie said, listening intently. "Right, so all the adults were following procedure, preparing to evacuate and seal. But I noticed something on the station schematic. There was a maintenance tunnel that connected to Section 7 from Section 8. The tunnel was narrow, only about 20 inches wide. Too small for any of the adult crew members." Jake was nodding now, seeing where this was going. "I volunteered to go through the tunnel and help evacuate the trapped crew. At first, the station commander said absolutely not. Too dangerous, but I pointed out that in a real emergency, would he rather follow safe procedures and let people die or take a reasonable risk to save them?" "What did he say?" Peter asked. "He said if I could convince my mother to approve it, he would allow it. So I explained to Mom that I had been through a similar situation before at Orbital Station Harmony. I knew how to move carefully through tight spaces. I knew how to assess structural integrity. I knew when to push forward and when to back off. Mom gave permission," Lisa smiled. "It was one of the hardest things I have ever done, letting her go into that tunnel during a drill." But Emma was right. She had the skills and the judgment. "So I went through the tunnel," Emma continued. "I reached the trapped crew members, guided them back through the tunnel one at a time, and everyone got out safely. The drill controller said we completed it in record time. After that, the alien crew stopped seeing me as a reckless child. They started seeing me as a capable team member who happens to be young. That is the key," Jake said thoughtfully. "Not proving you are just like adults, but proving you have value as young people with your own strengths." They reached the Junior Explorers meeting room. Inside, a mixed group of young beings were working on a project together. A Yithian was teaching a Vrelian cadet about star charts. 2 Plethari youngsters were helping a Grell with a physics problem, and a young Aquarian was showing everyone a sample of ice from a comet they had studied. "This is what I am most proud of," Emma said quietly. "We created a space where young beings from different species learn together. Not just learn facts, but learn how to communicate and cooperate across really big differences." Katie watched the group with wide eyes. "Emma, you basically started a school. More like a club. But yeah, kind of. The adults have their way of doing things. They have procedures and protocols and chain of command. That stuff is important. But young ones, we connect differently. We are less worried about looking stupid or asking basic questions. That makes it easier for us to learn from each other. Commander Morrison pulled out his data pad. Emma, I want to show you something. The Galactic Council has been tracking integration metrics across all the stations where human families are placed. Want to guess which station has the highest positive interaction ratings between humans and aliens? Frontier Station.